All right, welcome, Blockheads. This is July 24th, 2024, 9:35 a.m. East Coast, New York. We are a little bit late, but this is episode 88 of Business on the Block, CrowdStrike, and the case for decentralization. The recent Microsoft outage has revealed a hidden danger, our global interconnectedness. This catastrophic software glitch last week is sparking calls for decentralization. We'll tell you more about this. But we're going to explore today how decentralized architectures can safeguard the world of digital business. As always, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Who's muted?
Oh, you're muted, Michelle. Okay, and Mike Neubauer.
Sorry.
No worries.
Good morning.
Wrong screen. I'm looking at Bloc. I'm looking at the Bolt Plus screen. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're in the UK and Europe.
So we're going to dig into, we're going to connect this to blockchain, of course, at the end, but this is basically whether or not you're interested in technology. There was a worldwide problem last week. It was tagged as a Microsoft problem, but really it's not. It's a company named CrowdStrike, and we'll explain a little more. But it opens up the larger discussion, primarily on X, if those are following this, around the dependency on centralized systems. And this is not just our viewpoint. We're just going to relay what we hear. All right, so I'll take us into story number one. This is coming to us from Binance, of all places. According to Binance's chief security officer, the July 19th technology failure highlights the global interconnectedness problem. This outage underscored the dangers of centralized single point of failure. He explained how shifting towards more distributed systems, specifically blockchain, could enhance reliability. For those not familiar with the reference, I don't know who wouldn't be, there was a faulty software upgrade that caused global havoc last Friday. Flights were grounded, financial companies, news outlets all went offline. Government offices worldwide were hobbled. It was basically a cybersecurity update gone awry from a company named CrowdStrike, and it affected any customers running Microsoft Windows. As you might imagine, that's a lot of folks. It is the world's most popular operating system for personal computers, and essentially the digital world was brought to its knees because there's only a few key providers providing all the main computing services worldwide. And so this wasn't a hack or a cyber attack, which was the initial thought, but it raises a bigger question. So we're going to start the conversation with you, Mike. This seems closer to your world. What do you think about what happened? What do you think about potential solutions being suggested? What should we know about?
Well, like you said, the initial thought of a cyber attack, I mean, that's really the era of where we live right now, right? We see something of this scale, of this magnitude. The first reaction, because everybody's sort of at the edge of their seat waiting for the next, burp in the system to, throw everything offline. Everybody thought this was an attack, including myself. But I would argue that most people were just pissed that their flight was delayed, or that they couldn't access their bank. They don't really care about why or what happened. They just wanted to, continuously have that app that makes them waffles, as we say, right? So in the grand scheme of things, again, this, chalked up to an upgrade, error, whatever it is. But I think from the point of what we make on a weekly basis on this show, the centralized efforts to have a system sort of funnel all of the information back up to a primary source is really archaic in the ability of technology that we have at our fingertips today. So I realize that it's not going to be a blink of an eye solution to migrate some of these systems that have been in place for decades into a more decentralized blockchain type structure, but we're seeing what benefits that system has in the event of a failure at the primary source. In a blockchain system, if one node fails, another node comes and picks it up, which would theoretically have prevented an issue like this. So again, there's massive amounts of infrastructure that have to be sort of put in place in order to even consider that type of migration. But this is an example, and it wasn't a catastrophic one that, people were down for weeks and months at a time. So it was rectified pretty quickly. But these are things that, show the cracks in the dam that we can easily plug using blockchain.
So, for a little background for the listeners, we always bat back and forth between articles that might make worthy discussions for the weekly show. And this was brought to the attention by Michelle, right? But as often happens, and Michelle, when you first pinged me on this one, it was around the implications towards Bitcoin. And I remember being confused in the chat. I'm like, how does Bitcoin relate to what just happened with this outage? So I'll let you talk a little bit more about this, but I'd love to get your thoughts on the outage, CrowdStrike, the larger situation.
So as Insol is typing in the chat for Bolt Plus, that like it was much more. It was a really low level error in a patch that was put out for the software. Like it wasn't even like it was a major upgrade or anything like that. And one of the things I think that's in the spin-off effect, particularly here, like I live in a village in the middle of South Oxfordshire in the UK, and basically no supermarkets worked here. People couldn't buy anything. People couldn't do anything because effectively you could only have cash. And even then, some of the supermarkets, their entire scanning systems, and like they couldn't even add up what you were buying. And so we have a village here where there's one there's one machine that you can get cash out in a particular bank, and once the money runs out, you have to drive 25 minutes to somewhere else. And so and a lot of people don't carry cash these days. So what happened was it highlighted how quickly our lives can be stalled or stopped because of an IT failure. And my point of that, I guess, when I was mentioned it to us in the chat that we run, is that if you can't access the centralized standard currency system in the country, then this is what happens. But if people had Bitcoin or Ethereum, or the trading of that in terms of exchange for goods and services was more prolific than it is now, then there may be some options in which you could have used that. Now, if the computer systems in Waitrose or Lidl or whatever still were using Microsoft computers, then I guess they still would have been affected. But the ability to actually trade may not have been as extensive if we had a less centralized financial system.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, it's not just the travel, Mike, to your point. I agree with you. That's what made the news, at the airports all got shut down. But Michelle, you're right. Groceries, gas station, everyday people in everyday towns couldn't do things. And so this opens up the possibility for bank runs, in the matter of, if you needed cash to go get your gas and your groceries, et cetera, and everyone goes at the same time to go to the bank, there's not enough paper cash in any banking system, not in a fiat setup. So,
well, if it had been for a week or like even 2 or 3 days, it would have been a complete disaster in that respect.
Right. So you're talking zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I'm gonna make an executive decision. We didn't discuss this before, but I think we're entering territory where we should at least bring it up. We don't have a story for it anyway.
All right.
I'll do it.
By the way, for the listeners, no one has any idea. My hat's falling apart. No one has any idea how Mike's taking this. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm
okay,
scared.
So, well, I mean, Michelle, you bring up a good point, right? Like, how many systems are in place now where everything is forced to be digital, right? We live in this digital age where, you need your phone to access a ticket to enter a stadium. In the stadium, they don't take cash. Nobody takes cash anymore. I mean, there's actual places that refuse to take the cash, which I don't even know if that's legal, especially here in the States. But regardless, that's the system that they all moved in. And one little hiccup in the system creates this massive amounts of chaos. Now, again, they were able to take the gum out of their mouth and put it into the crack of the dam this time. But what if, again, we're in conspiracy corner here, what if this was simply a trial that allowed people to understand Well, what if this fallacy lasted 4 days and people can't get groceries and they have to drive 25 minutes? But wait a minute, they can't go and pump gas because gas only takes credit card. So now they can't even go and get the cash that they need out of the system, where there's a bank run on that system. Like, I mean, this is a compounding recipe for chaos. Again, bringing it all, funneling it back up to the source. But, what if somebody were to develop some sort of an AI system that can analyze all this and calculate the best possible time to do any of these things? And, for reasons that we won't get into, this was the beginning of a ridiculous 10-day period, especially on this side of the pond.
Mike, I want to comment on that. Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
I agree with you. I think it's a great point. It's kind of, I wasn't going to go conspiracy on it, but since we're gone here already, yeah, I was going to touch on the fact that this was the first global IT outage in human history, globally. Like, we've never seen something on this scale before. And so that inspires copycat things, from terrorism to potential, bad actors, as you're referencing. So yes, that is a risk now. There's a new problem we didn't know about before.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say this decentralization push is not just about that the IT works right. Like, these companies want to continue to make their money. That's what that's about. But it ties into the anti-censorship pushback, the anti-woke pushback that's going on globally right now. There's this, we're not going politics, but this push for decentralization is connected to politics.
Well, look at who posted the article that we read. I mean, that should indicate exactly who it is, right? So, the solution is in the, the underlying, author of the article, assuming, of course, it's not some, AI generated Pete who likes long walks on the beach. But again, I think that, if we take 2 steps back, we understand that there's a problem. We understand that the problem got fixed. South Park had a hilarious episode about this once, where like the internet went down and people were losing their minds. And all they literally had to do was unplug the modem and plug it back in, like the old days. Like, you still do it every now and then too. But if it's a simple solution, something like that, then who's responsible for fixing that solution? And if that solution is persistent and it escalates to a period where, maybe the unplug, component is a little bit more involved and it takes longer to fix, now we have to start considering moving to this decentralized system to avoid the problem in the first place. Unless, of course, there's room for profit upon chaos.
So I want to address a quick comment from in LinkedIn. Scott Breen. Scott, thanks for the comment. We appreciate this. Scott mentions it's totally legal to go digital only in the U.S. Lots of restaurants and bars do it. So, Mike, this is referencing your earlier point as to whether or not they can do, cash is prohibited. I agree with you, Scott. It's legal because money, quote unquote, is defined as both in the States I'm talking. However, a quick side personal anecdote, which has shed some light on this. When I gas up, when I put gas in my Jeep, I always do cash. Don't ask. It's just a habit. And I can't tell you how many times in the last 2 months I have said, fill it up, cash. They fill it up, they pull the nozzle out, and when it's all done, and they're like, good luck, have a great day. And they're waiting for me to drive away. And I have to remind them I haven't paid yet. This has happened to me repeatedly, enough so that I was like, this is an interesting pattern happening.
Well, let's also clarify something. You live in New Jersey, and it's illegal to pump your own gas in New Jersey.
Yes. So my point is, people are so acclimated to the digital that they're not expecting cash. And in fact, they don't know how to handle it oftentimes in many establishments. So this push against cash, which is clearly obviously in the government's interest, taxation, et cetera, is going to be a problem in a world where the IT systems don't work properly. And what's the alternative to Microsoft? Where do you go if you are uncomfortable, you run your large scale enterprise global thing on Microsoft's infrastructure and everyone's got access to do an upgrade that could screw that up? Where do you go?
Apple.
I mean, and I think, one of the things that's had us thinking is that, like my husband used to pride himself on, he'd have, $50 in his wallet, and how long can I keep it before I actually crack the 50 open? Because we rarely, carry cash these days. I think the longest he's gone is something like 3 or 4 months where he hasn't had to use it. And so, but it makes you think now, okay, so if this had lasted longer, fortunately I'd gone to the supermarket the day before. So I didn't need to go that particular day or the next day when things were still a bit crazy. But like it makes you think, well, okay, do I need to kind of have $100 or $200 cash sitting, under the bed? In the old days, they would have said, just in case we need it to do something like feed ourselves
The answer is
going
yes.
forward. Like,
The
I don't
answer is
know.
absolutely yes. And,
Yeah.
We've seen sort of trial runs of these runs before, right? These, the toilet paper craze of 2020. Everybody, seems to forget that only a short time ago. But, living in Florida, I actually experience this almost every year, right? Because a hurricane is inbound and people go bonkers. I mean, you can't find gas, you can't find water, you can't find food. And, I get it. People are, they're preparing for themselves. But, again, it just shows that there are fallacies in the infrastructure, right? And if you remove the point of conversion for that, then you have bigger problems.
I'm bringing to light here something that Michelle has posted in our private chat. This is a graphic for those who are listening and not looking. There's a very complex machine of AI, all modern digital infrastructure, and it's supported underneath by a tiny little line that says a project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003. So the dependency of the global system, if you will, on nut jobs here or there, this is the beauty of decentralization. The concept of decentralization, I'm going to tie it right back to the App Store, going back in the day. It was, you can make whatever you want, and if it's popular, people will use it. And that's how you get to the best ideas. The reality is that if you're going to rely on a centralized authority in any way, from government to technology, you are at the mercy.
So I have, and we're in our little conspiracy corner here. So I'm going to bring up Michelle's favorite entrepreneur. It's arguable that Elon has created a decentralized internet structure with Starlink,
which is, by the way, controversial.
I actually agree with that.
The governments don't like it.
And he doesn't care. But the point is that you're not reliant on Comcast anymore to get internet in a specific region, right? He created a net that covers the globe that allows you to, access one satellite. If that one satellite goes down, there's another right around the corner.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated. I was in Switzerland about 2 years ago, and I saw the Starlink satellites move through. It's fascinating to watch those things across the sky. Anyway,
there's so many of them.
I think that there's a lot. There's an argument to be made now that it was cool to talk about blockchain and decentralization. It was just interesting. Now, when it affects people's everyday ability to feed their family, well, now that's a different story. It elevates.
It's becoming more central. Yeah.
It's a political issue. It's not even the freedom thing. It's not the push for human agency and all the arguments that people used to. It's that you might not be able to put gas in your car. And that causes bigger problems, like social unrest problems that governments do care about.
Now, imagine a world where they don't allow you to have gas cars and they force you to charge your car, but the charging system, the grid goes down. Then what?
Or if they have access to your vehicle, lock and unlock, etc. Yeah.
I think too that it is something that we need to think about more in terms of how, and not being doomsday preppy and all of that kind of stuff, but how would we be able to manage, just take us, as a family, we've all got families, the three of us, how would we be able to manage our family, and for how long, if we couldn't access the supermarkets or fill up our car with petrol? I think to myself, well, I know some people who won't let their car go less than half a tank of petrol, for example, and I'll run it down to it's 8 miles to the nearest gas station, and I've got 10 miles of petrol in my car. Can I get there? And it's not about being all doom and gloom and whatever, but I guess as we get more reliant on these sorts of systems, which, you could say we're pretty reliant on them now, but as that increases over the next few years, then, maybe we do need to have a little bit of a fail-safe system within our own little families or our own collectives to make sure that we can see, don't put your freezer down to absolutely nothing in there, have those frozen meals or, like some meat stuff in there or vegetables so that you can use them if you need to.
Well, my answer to that is very simple: buy more guns. But
So-
there are other
No,
Florida man.
absolutely, there are prepping
no.
issues that we need to account to, because if this little advancement in technology has taught us anything, is that we are somewhat subjected to decisions that we have no influence on, right? And there are puppeteers pulling strings that we won't be able to control. So you just got to manage your own little bubble and prepare for the worst. I mean, the best day of anyone's life is the day that you don't use the things that you prepare for. I say guns not jokingly, but jokingly, the best day of your life is when you don't have to use it. But I'd rather be the guy that has it when he does need it than be the guy that doesn't when he needs it. So
don't come and live. Don't emigrate to Australia ever, Mark. You won't be able to bring your guns with you. Sorry.
Two quick personal anecdotes. Number one, when I was 20 years old, I ran out of gas going to visit my girlfriend, and I had to, until you've pushed your Jeep Wrangler 6 miles to the gas station, you never let your tank go below a quarter after that. Two is, in 2008, my employer, Lehman Brothers, disappears, and I learned a lot off of that. Like, the unexpected became, in everyday life, it's always unexpected. When something like the IT happens, the outage from last week, it never was something that you knew. Mike, your hurricane thing is different because you know it's coming. The reality is, you wake up one morning, there's no electricity, and it's not going to come back on for a month. Like, that's how these zombie movies all start. That's what you need to prepare for, in not to the extreme, but to your point, Michelle, thinking through how would you get by if you had to. And
we woke up one morning and wiped our ass with Bounty.
That's good to know, Mike. The decentralization argument, though, is gaining steam. And if anyone's following this on X, Twitter, it is front and center. A lot of these tech folks, and they're coming from the IT perspective, right? If you are a company that makes something and you're relying on someone else's tech, that's a problem. So, but it's spreading into regular folks now. Get the idea. What's the problem here? They didn't care. Now they care.
So it's really interesting because my eldest was flying here on the day that happened from Australia, and I said to him, "You better check, at the airport if the flights are going." He was flying Singapore Airlines from Melbourne to Heathrow, and Singapore Airlines clearly do not use Microsoft because none of their planes were a problem. Qantas, Jetstar, all of them, no flights for 48 hours or something. So it was an interesting exercise too, to see who was still running, because you knew then that they were not part of the Microsoft family.
Right. All right, I want to take us into the speed round if I can take us out of conspiracy corner. I'm gonna remove my Viking conspiracy tinfoil. So this is a new session we're rolling out, folks. We're trying out the speed round. Tell us what you think about this. In the speed round, we're going to get one quick story and one comment from each of our panelists, as I'll call us. So story number one, coming off of Bloomberg. Sam Altman-backed group completes largest U.S. study on basic income, right? Universal basic income, UBI. There was a 3-year study where $1,000 a month in cash payments were given to folks with no strings attached. The study found that participants used the funds to buy essentials like food, rent, and transportation, and not vices like alcohol, which was the concern. Right now in America, the United States, 35 U.S. states are testing the idea of a universal basic income. Thoughts on this one, Michelle? We'll start with you.
So in a former life, I was a social geographer, and it is, and it has been for a very long time, that giving people access to additional cash does help. It helps with children's education. It helps with being able to have books at home. It helps with food. And the story goes and tells you that it actually doesn't produce lazy people like some people would like to have you believe. That said, though, other than unemployment benefits or those sorts of things, there are not very many countries in the world that have adopted something like this. But I think that as the problems of the world increase, then and the study from the findings from this study show that it actually can make a difference, and it's something that should be looked at.
Mike, what are your thoughts on universal basic income and the study being done here by Altman's group?
Completely against everything. Get off your lazy ass and go earn whatever you get. Frankly, this is something that keeps floating around, but the reality is in any open market system, if there's more cash infused, that means that the prices are just going to go up because people realize that you're getting this free cash, so therefore you can charge more for it. Every time this system has been in place where governments hand out cash, it has been a colossal failure. So I don't understand where this one is going to be this God-saving, effort. First of all, where does the cash come from? Comes from us. So we're just literally taking money out of our right pocket and putting it back into our left pocket and putting it into Jim's pocket down the street. Who knows? I mean, maybe some of their studies omitted some of the people that would not use these things the right way. But I guarantee you there's going to be people that go on vacation with the cash. There's going to be people that still go on, these government paid programs and subsidized programs, even if they have this disposable income, because they're going to use that income for other vices that they want, not basic essentials.
All right, my perspective
it's just not true, but anyway.
It's a
1,000% true.
No, we're not debating this. It's a necessary evil. In my opinion, this is the reality. It's coming because of the AI job losses, whether we like it or not. I fully expect some form of UBI. I'm not a fan of all animals being created equal because some are more equal than others. So, but Mike, you and I are both American capitalists, so it's a different story. And Michelle,
the only people that got
No, please. I'm saying it's not a crack at you. I think you raise a good point too. Go ahead.
I think the only people who got this were 300% below the poverty line. Like, this is not giving people money to go to the poker machines or whatever. Like, they would have been a small percentage that might have used
poor people, low income.
If we give Iran money for humanitarian purposes, are we going to assume that they're not going to use it for other means? Of course they will. It's
all right,
just channeling money in a different area.
Folks. Speed round, story number 2. Ethereum has a spot ETF that started trading this week. The Chicago Board Options Exchange and others. 5 spot Ethereum ETFs are all trading now, active in the marketplace. Thoughts around this one? Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, apparently I only have 18 hours on a limited time offer to take advantage of something. I mean, look, this is Wall Street trying to, just control the system like they did with Bitcoin. We called it that they were going to move into Ethereum. Ethereum is the Pepsi to the Coca-Cola. There was no doubt that they were going to move into this realm. The problem that we've discussed on several occasions here is that Ethereum does not hold the same sort of intrinsic long-term value like Bitcoin does. So Ethereum is more of a platform to be able to build on, ironically similar to Pepsi when they introduced all their snacks. Versus Coca-Cola, who has not. So Ethereum is that building block and that foundation. It's going to be interesting to see what effect, again, this fictitious market in Wall Street has on another marketplace in the crypto world.
Michelle, what are your thoughts around the Ethereum spot ETF debut?
So I agree with Mike, even though I disagreed profusely with him on the previous story.
You can give me $1,000, Michelle. I'll take it.
We have talked about it before. We have said that this is a way in which the top end of town can put their fingers in to see how much they can manipulate it and what they can do. Bitcoin, Bitcoin went down when these were launched. There's been $1 billion worth of trading as of last night. In the US, and so I think that there will be some of this that will go on for a little while until the market settles, but eventually we will see that it will just become another instrument at which superannuation funds or insurance companies can have their fingers into the decentralized pie, but not actually really be in it.
I'm going to build on that. 2 thoughts from me. Number 1, this is definitely Wall Street, the finance TradFi world, getting their grubby fingers into the pie here. It's all about control. But on the back end of that, I'm going to draw this distinction, as I always do, between every crypto coin or token and Bitcoin, right? So the ETH, Solana, Ripple, you go right down the list. You can print them all. You cannot print Bitcoin. And I think that's going to matter at the end of the day in the years ahead.
I'd say
all
decades,
right.
And I've got 19 hours and 8 minutes, Mike. So clearly, you're a bit short there.
Going speed round. Story number 3. By the way, I want to credit Mike Neubauer for our little graphics here. Those are great videos, Mike. So this is coming off of Finance Yahoo. Zuckerberg is calling on the industry to adopt open sourced AI. Irony of ironies. Michelle, we'll start with you on this. I know you love Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, look, almost as much as I love Elon Musk. Well, can a leopard change its spots? I mean, I think that it is, as you said, ironic, but I think that it is just like, how stupid do these mega rich CEO people who control such large amounts of the information and the stories that we see and read and hear through their platforms and their programs, how stupid do they think that we are sometimes? Like, I mean, honestly, I just think that Mark needs to go back and go back to wherever it is that he came from and stay away from the rest of us. It's just ridiculous that he thinks that we're going to believe him with this.
Mike, what are your thoughts on Zuckerberg and the open sourced AI call?
Well, I again, the irony is it speaks for itself. But I want to reference something. I guess I forget what documentary it was. Something about McDonald's. And back in the day, McDonald's had a beef company, and they named it Grade A Beef. That was the name of the company, and it was really shit beef. But the name of the company was Grade A. This is no different from open sourced AI, open AI, right? Like, so, he brings to light that, it is a closed loop system, only they would have access to it. But once again, I sort of feel that this is another case of a company who feel like that they missed the train as it was leaving the station. And, they have two choices. They can either adopt, which is what Apple ultimately did, and bring on that existing technology, or stand there and shit all over it and say, you know what, we're calling for more of an even, equitable distribution of AI tools that we can all have fun with and use, because we don't have what you guys have. And I think that's what Zuckerberg is doing, not for us, not for anybody to benefit from, but to ensure that Facebook has some skin in the game at some point and doesn't become the MySpace of 2025.
I'm going to build on that, Mike.
Where was he when Elon called that it should be open sourced? Where was he that? When was that? A year ago?
They were building Meta's version that would be closed sourced.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Look, let's not deny that they already have one. If you go to WhatsApp again, you can chat with yourself in this virtual assistant that they've created.
I do that in the bathroom all the time. All right, so my thoughts on this. Number one, I'm going to put context around what both of you are saying, and I agree with you. In the AI world right now, the building AI, the winner so far has been Google and OpenAI, clearly. And you can argue what you want, but those are the two dominant forces. The losers, who I think have already lost right now, Apple, Meta / Facebook. They have lost. It's over. Like, they didn't get out of the starting gate. It's too hard to catch up right now. Amazon, and then in the middle, you've got two companies fighting who may be relevant and may be able to unseat down the road, but they haven't lost yet. But in battling there is Amazon with Anthropic, and of course X. You never want to count out Elon because he's building Grok.
And that's why Zuckerberg didn't comment when Elon did, because he understands that Elon has the capability of building this much faster than he does.
I agree. Yeah. And if you listen to Elon talk, he discusses how Tesla, like the car, their AI is already more advanced than anyone else, including, he specifies Meta. So my point is, if you've lost, you're going to go for the open AI thing, right? The open sourced thing. If you've won, well, then you like it closed because that's your bread and butter. And so it's still a fight. It's not settled yet, but think of it in terms of the winners, the losers, and those fighting for it. All right. We're going to do the recap here for the, by the way, thank you for playing along with the speed round, guys. That was good. Business on the Block. We went through this week CrowdStrike and the case for decentralization, right? So Binance was discussing how the outage has underscored the dangers of centralized single points of failure. We discussed in the speed round Sam Altman's back group around universal basic income. Ethereum spot ETFs have debuted, and Zuckerberg calling for open sourced AI. What are the big takeaways from this week? Michelle, we'll start with you. What do we need to know? What really stuck with you?
So I think we need to, what I said before, think about how would we manage as a family or as individuals in the case of the next time that IT infrastructures worldwide go down, because they will at some point. So I think that there's, we need to do that. Secondly, I think that ultimately open source AI is probably where it's going to go, and they are going to have to come up with another way in which they're going to make money.
Mike, what do you think were the big takeaways from this week's stories?
So I'm going to combine a couple just for the hell of it. Imagine a world where UBI does take place and therefore the system crashes and nobody can access it. What chaos ensues at that point?
Civil unrest.
Correct. So again, you want to make the recipe, blow it up, and have people dependent on you for the solution when you made the mistake. This is just another, ingredient in the recipe.
So I think the story, I agree with you, by the way. And I think that is a danger we should be aware of, a centralized system that doesn't work. The story that struck me the most, believe it or not, I think was that last one around the winners and losers in the AI world. I really, and this is not because I'm an Elon fanboy, although you could argue I am. Open sourced AI will win versus closed sourced AI because there's just more developers, right? It's a global worldwide workforce for free is always going to beat any closed company. And so Elon's Grok will probably suck at first, but by virtue of the fact that it will be open source, if it truly is, and I think that guy will do it as open, it will win. It has to win in the end because the best ideas will bubble to the surface. And so I think this is a long-term battle. And Elon, by the way, would know all this.
We've already seen this with the internet.
Right. And
Yes.
so Zuckerberg is not stupid. You don't have to like the guy, but he's going to see the same things that we're talking about here. And so the bet on Elon, it's not even really a bet on Elon. It's a bet on the globalness of people's intelligence in building an AI will outstrip any one company. All right. So that's this week's Business on the Block. This was episode 88. We come every week, traditionally on Wednesdays, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we're going to shoot for that next week. We might have a summer lull after that because we got some travel coming up. But we're also going to say a quick plug for what we do here. A lot of times we've been asked offline or through like, what are we? Business on the Block is a business discussion around the digitization of business. We call it the weekly insight into your digital business revolution. And that encompasses AI, blockchain, digital social. All the changes that are happening in business are happening faster. And the three of us believe that there really is no intelligent conversation around how do we leverage what's happening? How do we understand what's happening? We're not trying to be the news. We're trying to tell you what it might mean and how to think about things. So that being the case, we'll go a quick background on what we all do. Mike, I'd like to start with you. Just let people know what you are, where you come from, what are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the ops guy, right? So I handle a lot of business operations. I take on client work, retainer work, handle operating, mostly in the digital infrastructure for different businesses. And really, what I bring to the table as part of this discussion is the merger of where business is today versus where it's going to be based around the technological advances that we're seeing evolve super quick. I do a lot of web development work, a lot of blockchain work, dabbled in AI and AI bot creation and things like that. So I'm trying to understand and stay on top of the tidal wave as it continuously grows with all this advancements of technology, all bridging it back to an efficiency tool for a business.
So how do you help people, Mike?
Well, I mean, again, it really depends on where they are with their business. I have startup businesses that I work with. I have well-established businesses. I have businesses that are looking to grow in different areas, expand their corporate infrastructure, their internal operating, sources. It really is a custom-based business model that I have, depending on where people are in their business journey. But for the most part, it's really the engine under the hood, the thing that people don't see. That really keeps the business moving forward. That's what I focus on.
Terrific. Thank you. Michelle, quick background, how you help people, what you do, what's your focus?
So been working with digital internet marketing since early 2000s, and from 2017 was involved in the Web3 blockchain, doing marketing communications and strategy development for companies. So I've been doing some, just some blog newsletter writing and those sorts of things in a couple of different categories. But yes, always open to doing strategy and communication stuff for companies, businesses, individuals. And yeah, that's what I do.
Terrific. And my background, for those who don't know, I'm 30 years sales from fintech, the algo AI side of Wall Street, basically. The last 5 years, my company provides content strategy and development, business training. We'll call it business coaching, really, for executives to solopreneurs. And so that's the three of us. We do this conversation every week because we feel that really the business world needs this, right? People, where do you go to get an intelligent, upscaled conversation? And so, without the bias, we got a little bit of the crazy out of Mike, a little bit of the normal out of Michelle. The idea is supposed to be, we bring you guys some insight each week. We thank you for the support, specifically the Bolt Nation. We know that you guys are there every week. The questions that come through LinkedIn, Scott Breen, thank you. Anything that you guys want to have in terms of conversation that you think we should be discussing, feel free to bring it to our attention. Where are we directing folks? Michelle, I think, is it YouTube? Is that our best?
Yeah.
All right. So Business on the Block is on YouTube, among other places. And that's all I've got for this week. Any other final thoughts from my co-hosts?
Follow us on Threads.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. See you next week, everybody.